Alexei Nikolaevich Kosygin was appointed to the post of chairman of the Council of Ministers Khrushchev after he left. Even under Khrushchev, he was deputy chairman of the Council of Ministers. He often expressed dissatisfaction with the heavy spending on some military programs. It was he who contributed to the closure of the V-350N-40 project for the creation of intercontinental supersonic cruise missiles. After that, by a decree of the Council of Ministers of February 5, 1960, it was ordered to stop all work on the project, as well as to destroy all the accumulated materials. Kosygin ordered the State Research Institute of Aviation Systems to conduct a study to confirm the futility of supersonic cruise missiles. As a result, the institute presented the conclusion that it is better to make a lot of subsonic cruise missiles than few supersonic ones. Alexander Yakovlevich Berezniak, whom we met in the previous issue, also learned about the results of this study. The link is on the top right. In 1971, he submitted to the Ministry of Defense a finished project for a subsonic cruise missile. In this rocket, not only the wings, keel, and stabilizers, but also the engine itself, were folded into the fuselage. But Andrei Antonovich Grechko, who at that time held the post of Minister of Defense of the USSR, did not like this project. Nevertheless, despite the lack of an order, Berezniak's design bureau continued to develop the project on the personal initiative of the chief designer. And even the death of Berezniak in July 1974 did not stop these developments. Moreover, the Omsk Motor Building Design Bureau, which was transferred in 1973 to the Baranov plant, also joined the development over time. The employees of this plant began to design the same turbojet engine that was retracted into the fuselage of the rocket. Since the management of the Baranov plant was against these works, the design was disguised as the development of a starter for helicopter engines. They succeeded because the order for this activity was formalized. In 1976, after the death of Defense Minister Grechko, the situation changed. By this time, the turbo starter and the turbojet engine, unified with this turbo starter in many details, were already ready in the design bureau. But the Baranov plant refused to master this engine in production. And an order for its production was placed at the Rybinsk motor plant, which made Buran snowmobiles. Since the development of the engine in Omsk was carried out illegally at the personal request of the new chief designer Igor Sergeyevich Seleznev, the Ministry of Aviation Industry did not know anything about it. They gave the task of developing the same engine to the former Mikulin Design Bureau. The fact is that Alexander Alexandrovich Mikulin left design work back in 1959 because he decided to take up medicine. After graduating from medical school at 80, he became a candidate of medical sciences and died in 1985 at the age of 90. The Mikulin Design Bureau was headed by Professor Oleg Nikolaevich Favorsky. And under his leadership, an engine was created that received the index R95-300. Unlike the Omsk engine, its compressor was not centrifugal, but axial, and also had 7 steps instead of 1. Due to this, the entire engine weighed 95 kilograms, while the Omsk engine weighed 82 kilograms. Although both engines were considered low resource, the Omsk engine, which was called the TRD-50, had a resource almost 2 times longer. But during the tests, the Omsk engine suffered 2 breakdowns, due to which the rockets fell immediately after launch. As a result, the R95-300 was assigned as the engine for this rocket. But the developer of this engine did not have its own production facilities. Therefore, its production was placed at the Zaporizhzhia engine building plant. The production of the rocket itself was deployed at the Kharkov Aviation Production Association named after Lenin Komsomol. In December 1986, this production will be transferred to a plant located in the city of Kirov. On December 31, 1983, the missile will be put into service under the symbol X-55. But since February of the same year, these missiles began to equip the 1223 Bomber Regiment stationed in the city of Semipalatinsk, Kazakhstan. Technically, the rocket was an unmanned aircraft of the classical scheme, like its marine modification of the Granat rocket, which later became the basis of the Kaliber cruise missile. Its fuselage diameter was 514 millimeters, the wingspan was 20 centimeters less and amounted to 3 meters 10 centimeters. The length of the rocket is 6 meters 4 centimeters. The launch weight was 1,200 kilograms by default. The warhead of this missile was thermonuclear. Its warhead was similar to the American W-80 mounted on a Tomahawk. Its power in TNT equivalent was slightly more than the American counterpart, while the mass of the Soviet rocket was 20 kilograms less. In this configuration, the flight range was 2,500 kilometers. There was also a modification X-55CM. The range of this missile was 1,000 kilometers further. From the rocket in the basic configuration, the X-55CM rocket outwardly differed from the additional fuel tanks attached to the sides of the fuselage. Production continued until the collapse of the Soviet Union, after which production of the X-55 ceased. At the same time, about 1,500 missiles remained on the territory of Russia, and 1,150 missiles remained on the territory of Ukraine. Thermonuclear warheads from Ukrainian missiles were dismantled in 1992. In 1995, after the signing of the Budapest Memorandum, all nuclear warheads were transferred to Russia as part of Ukraine's renunciation of nuclear weapons. Subsequently, in 1999, Russia received 575 of these missiles to pay off its debt for gas. Already in the 1990s, it became clear that missiles of this class with conventional warheads have great export potential. In the first half of the 90s, the Raduga Design Bureau built the Kh-65 missile, which had a cumulative warhead and was positioned as an anti-ship missile. But this rocket failed to interest either foreign buyers or the Russian military department. Nevertheless, in 2000, the Ministry of Defense, which was then headed by Igor Dmitrievich Sergeyev, ordered a more accurate version of the X-55 with a non-nuclear warhead and new electronics from the Raduga Scientific and Production Association. It was this rocket that received the X-555 index. Its warhead contains 350 kilograms of explosive. But due to the increase in the size of the warhead, the volume of the fuel tank was reduced. The range of its flight was reduced to 2,000 kilometers instead of the Zaporizhia R-95-300 engine. The rocket now uses the same double-circuit turbojet engine with a centrifugal compressor and an axial fan. Instead of the Zaporizhia R-95-300 engine, the rocket now uses the same double-circuit turbojet engine with a centrifugal compressor and an axial fan, illegally developed in Omsk. Some call this engine the RDD-50 turbofan. The production of this engine in 2000 was restored in the same Rybinsk, at the same enterprise where it was first put into production in 1978. The Design Bureau Raduga and Berezniak did not stop at the creation of the X-55. In 2013, the Russian Army adopted the X-101 missile, which has elements of stealth technology fashionable in the 80s in its design. But that's a completely different story. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to the Manad Klingon channel. And don't forget to click on the bell. See you all again.